Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
My fiancée told her bridesmaids, "I'll marry him, then take half." Her sister saw me in the hallway. Froze. I slid a folder onto the table, new prenup, new witnesses, and a one-way ticket home. Her mom read it and slapped her across the face. The estate her family rented was massive. 100-year-old villa in the hills outside Napa. Ivy curling up stone columns, heavy oak doors, the kind of place people pick just to show off they can. It was 2 days before the wedding. Her parents were upstairs meeting with the caterers. I was in the hallway, waiting for the planner to bring me the final guest list. I wasn't pacing, just standing, watching the gold-framed mirror across the corridor. That's when I heard them. I wasn't eavesdropping. I didn't mean to be there. The bridesmaid suite was down the hall to the left, and the door was cracked just enough for voices to leak out. I recognized hers instantly. She was laughing, loud, relaxed. The kind of laugh you don't fake when you're with people who really know you. Then came the line that opened a hole in my chest before I even processed what it meant. She said, casually, between giggles, "Look, I'll marry him. Obviously. Then give it a year or two, and I'll take half. That's the deal." The others burst into laughter. One of them asked if she was serious. Another said something about making sure the prenup never gets signed. My fiancé's voice again, joking but cold. "He's in love. I could hand him a napkin and he'd think it's a love letter." They kept going, making a game of it. Someone asked if she'd fake a breakdown, get sympathy. She replied she wouldn't need to fake anything. She just had to act disappointed long enough to seem justified. They laughed again, like it was a college prank. I stood there, completely still, feeling heat rise in my ears but my body refusing to move. Then came footsteps. Her sister, Lena, came out of the room carrying a dress bag. She saw me. Her face collapsed in on itself like she'd walked into a crime scene. No words, just a breath caught halfway through a sentence. She froze. And that's when it hit me. It wasn't a joke. Not an exaggeration. Lena knew exactly what I'd heard. There was no laugh, no backpedaling, no effort to explain it away. Just silent, white-knuckled stillness between us. She clutched the hanger harder. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I didn't wait. I didn't speak. I turned and walked away. I left the villa without saying anything to anyone. No dramatic scene. No accusations. Just keys in my hand, the sound of my dress shoes on stone, and the sensation that I was walking out of someone else's life. I got into my car and drove. No direction, just movement. I stopped at a gas station 15 miles away, hands still shaking, and booked the nearest hotel room that wasn't a roadside dive. I didn't know what to do, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to that house until I had a plan. I'd been raised by attorneys. My mother used to say, if you ever catch someone lying, don't explode. Document. So that's what I did. I sat in the hotel room that night replaying everything in my head. Every past moment that had felt off, but I ignored. The time she changed the subject when we talked about prenups. The way she insisted on adding her name to the vacation home deed, even though she hadn't paid for it. The way she reacted when I once made a joke about splitting everything 50-50. It all aligned now. It wasn't a series of red flags. It was a blueprint, and I'd walked right into it. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number at first. Then a text. "It's Lena. Please, can we talk?" For a moment, I debated blocking the number, but I didn't. I called her back. She answered immediately. Her voice was low, strained. She apologized before anything else. Not on behalf of her sister, but for herself. For freezing. For not saying anything. She told me she wanted to talk face to face. Not out of guilt, but because she had something to offer. Proof. The next morning, we met in the hotel lobby. She sat across from me, barely looking up. Then she pulled out her phone. She hadn't meant to record anything. She had been filming herself trying on the dress. But her phone caught a few seconds of the conversation inside the suite. Enough to hear her sister say the words clearly. Lena offered to send it to me. I said yes. I didn't ask her why she was helping me. I didn't care. I thanked her, told her not to contact me again unless I reached out, and walked out of the hotel. I got back into my car, and I made a plan. It would have been easy to cancel the wedding right then. Call her parents. Make a scene. Let the whole thing burn. But that wouldn't have been enough. Not for someone who saw marriage as a heist. She wanted to walk away with half. I was going to make sure she walked away with nothing. But I needed to be smart. Calculated. Legal. And I had 48 hours. The clock had started ticking. The next morning started with a list. I sat at the hotel desk, staring at the screen of my laptop, mapping out every piece of leverage I could secure. I wasn't angry. That had burned out. What I felt now was surgical. Cold. Like a man preparing for a boardroom ambush, not a wedding. First item, legal. I contacted my cousin Anthony, a corporate attorney in San Francisco, who owed me a favor from helping him launch his tech startup. I told him I needed an urgent prenup rewrite, one that nullified any existing agreements and established strict asset separation. I didn't say why. He didn't ask. Within 3 hours, I had a rough draft in my inbox. Second, witnesses. The video clip Lena had sent me was clear enough for context, but not legally binding. I needed statements. I started with Lena. She texted again, nervously. I didn't ignore her this time. I asked her to meet me at a notary's office in town. I didn't trust digital signatures. If she was going to help, it had to be on paper. She hesitated, then agreed. I paid for a ride to bring her there. She arrived looking like someone on the verge of collapse. I handed her a simple statement already drafted, leaving blanks for her details. It described what she heard, when she heard it, and who was present. It made no accusations, only outlined facts. She read it twice, asked nothing, and signed. Then she looked up and said, "She doesn't love you." I wish she did, but she doesn't. I didn't respond. I thanked her and walked out. Third, corroboration. I needed people outside the family. I called Marcus, my longtime friend and business partner. He had been suspicious of her since the engagement party, where she'd referred to my company as his little project in front of investors. I told him what I needed. He said he'd be there. Then I called the concierge of the hotel I was staying in and offered him a generous tip for notarizing his signature as a witness to a separate statement, confirming I'd left the estate the night before, stayed at the hotel, and hadn't returned. Not directly related, but establishing timeline. Chain of events. Context. Then came the fourth piece, the exit. I booked a one-way business class ticket in her name, departing from San Francisco International the night of what was supposed to be our wedding day. Destination, her parents' home in Miami. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. She wasn't staying in my life. Not after this. She could go home. Alone. By sunset, I had the final prenup printed and bound. The folder included the notarized witness statements, the new agreement, and a single envelope with the airline ticket. All of it fit neatly into a black leather case. No anger. Just process. I didn't return to the estate that night. I sent a message to the wedding planner asking her to keep the rehearsal dinner schedule unchanged. Said I'd arrive late and join them then. She confirmed with a thumbs up and a heart. I ignored it. I spent the rest of the evening rehearsing nothing. I wasn't going to speak. I'd already spoken enough in this relationship. I'd proposed. I'd planned. I'd paid for her law school loans. I'd signed forms, rented venues, booked travel for her extended family. I wasn't going to plead my case now. I was just going to present the facts. The next morning, I shaved, dressed in a tailored gray suit, and drove back up to the villa. The housekeeper opened the door. She greeted me like nothing had happened, as if I hadn't disappeared for 36 hours. I asked if they were gathering for dinner yet. She said yes, out back near the vineyard terrace. I could hear glasses clinking and polite laughter through the open windows. The setting was perfect. Linen tablecloths, string lights, soft jazz drifting from a portable speaker. Everyone dressed like it was the cover of a wedding magazine. I walked around the house, not through it. I didn't want her to see me until I was at the table. I approached from the left side of the garden. The groom's table was near the head. She was seated beside her mother, laughing. Again, that same casual laugh from the day before. Like nothing mattered. Lena saw me first. Her posture stiffened. She nudged her mother, who looked up, then her father, who followed her gaze. My fiancée turned last. She smiled when she saw me. Relief. That fake mix of "you're here" and "see, we're fine." I walked up calmly. No greeting. No smile. I placed the folder directly in front of her plate. A heavy thud. The table went quiet. She looked at it, then at me, then back down. She reached for it, but her mother's hand got there first. She opened the folder slowly, like she already knew it wasn't good. She read the top page, flipped to the next, then the next. A pause. Her eyes stopped on the printed airline itinerary. She turned to her daughter, stared for a full second, and then, without a word, slapped her across the face. The sound cracked through the silence. No one moved, not even the servers nearby. Her father reached for his wine glass, missed, and set his hand back on the table. Lena looked down, ashamed. My fiancée gasped. She touched her cheek. Still didn't speak. Still didn't deny anything. I turned and walked away. No one followed. I didn't stay to watch her reaction. That was never the point. The folder had already done its job. I delivered truth in the cleanest format possible, legally bound, time-stamped, and signed by people who couldn't be bribed, guilt, or manipulated. If she wanted to dispute it, she'd have to challenge her own sister under oath. I left the terrace through the back gate, crossed the gravel path to the guest parking lot, and sat in the driver's seat with the door open. For the first time in 2 days, I could breathe normally. Not because it was over, it wasn't, but because I knew the next move was hers, and she couldn't undo what I'd already set in motion. 10 minutes later, Lena approached my car. She didn't knock, just stood by the passenger side, waiting. I unlocked the door. She got in, closed it, and stared forward. She didn't look at me. "She's still trying to spin it," she finally said. "Told our mom you must have misunderstood. That it was sarcasm." I let that hang in the air. "She's always been like that," she added. "Since high school. She doesn't think consequences apply to her. If she can cry hard enough, everyone forgets what she said 5 minutes ago. She won't cry her way out of this," I replied. Lena turned to me. "You know what scares her most?" I waited. "She can't stand being irrelevant. She doesn't care about love or loyalty, but she needs status. Control. That's why she picked you." It landed heavier than I expected. I'd already seen the signs, sure, but hearing it laid out, so blunt, so dispassionate, turned the knife differently. Not deeper, just with more clarity. Lena handed me a flash drive. "There's more on this," she said. "After you left the hallway." I hit record. I took it, not because I needed more evidence, but because I didn't trust my fiancée not to rewrite the story in the coming days. This was insurance. She wasn't just toxic. She was performative. She'd try to rewrite history by morning, paint herself as confused, heartbroken, misunderstood. I wasn't going to give her that runway. "I need to get back inside," Lena said. "They're probably wondering where I went." "You don't have to keep playing along," I said. "I know," she answered. "But someone has to make sure she doesn't burn the whole house down trying to save her pride." Then she left. I didn't drive away. Not yet. I stayed parked under that old oak tree near the driveway and watched the windows of the main house. Every now and then I saw movement behind the sheer curtains, shadows of guests shifting. Eventually, I started the engine and headed back to my hotel. Not a word from my fiancée. Not a message. Not even an attempt. The silence didn't surprise me. She'd never been the type to chase. Not unless she thought there was something to gain. She was calculating. A strategist. If she thought I was a lost cause, she wouldn't fight. She'd pivot to damage control. The next morning, I got a call from her father. He didn't yell. He didn't plead. He sounded like a man walking through the ruins of a house he helped build, only to realize the foundation had always been faulty. He told me he'd refunded the wedding deposits himself. Said I didn't need to worry about a thing. Then he paused, as if debating whether to say the next part. "I didn't raise her to be like this," he said. "But I also didn't stop her when I should have." I said nothing. There wasn't anything left to add. Then came the second call, her mother. This one was shorter. "She's gone back to Miami," she said. "Took the ticket." I nodded to myself. It had worked. No screaming match. No shouting in public. No revenge tantrum. Just pressure applied in the one place she couldn't manipulate, her own image. She could lie to friends, to her parents, but she couldn't lie to notarized signatures and travel confirmations. That's why the one-way ticket hit harder than the prenup. It said, "This isn't a fight. It's a dismissal." Around noon, the hotel manager slipped a letter under my door. Handwritten envelope. My name in blue ink. No return address. I knew who it was from before I opened it. Inside were 4 pages of tightly written excuses. She claimed she was under stress, that the joke got out of hand, that her bridesmaids exaggerated. She never denied saying it, just tried to bury it under a pile of context. She ended the letter with a line that said she hoped I would find a way to remember the real her. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and dropped it in the trash. There was no real her separate from the one who saw marriage as a strategy. That was her. I packed my things that afternoon, told the front desk to cancel my final night. Before leaving, I called Marcus and asked if he could meet me at the office Monday morning. We had contracts to review for a new investment deal, and I didn't want this mess bleeding into my business. By the time I got to my car, I had one more text. It was from Lena. She said you destroyed her life, it read. I told her she did that herself. That was it. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I spent the night in a hotel 2 towns over, away from the noise. No celebration, no confrontation. Just silence. I kept my phone face down on the nightstand. It buzzed a few times around 2 a.m., but I didn't pick it up. There was nothing left to hear. The next morning, I went to the villa once more, not to see her, not to explain, not to get closure. I had left a few personal items, a watch I'd inherited from my grandfather, a silver pen I'd used to sign our venue contract, and a bottle of scotch I'd planned to open with her father the night before the wedding. I wasn't going to leave anything sentimental behind. Not for her. Not to be part of her narrative later. When I arrived, the mood was different. Most of the guests were gone. The flower arrangements had been dismantled. The photographer stood near the porch, packing up his gear. The estate, only a day earlier filled with warm lights and quiet music, now looked like a stage after the play had ended, props still in place, but no one left pretending. I knocked once, then let myself in. Her mother was in the foyer, alone. She didn't look shocked to see me. If anything, she looked tired. "She's not here," she said. "She left this morning. Took the car. Didn't say goodbye." I nodded. "I just came for a few things." She didn't stop me. Just stood there as I gathered my things from the guest room. When I returned to the front door, she was still waiting, holding something. It was the prenup. Folded. Worn. The corners frayed slightly, as if it had been opened and closed too many times in too short a span. "I read it again," she said. "I saw what Lena signed, and the timestamp on the airline booking." I said nothing. "She tried to convince me it was all your fault," she continued. "Said you manipulated Lena. Said you fabricated the entire thing just to get out of commitment." Still, I said nothing. Her expression hardened. I told her to stop talking. Told her she embarrassed this family enough. And then I asked her if she even liked you. She didn't answer. She just stared at me, like she didn't understand the question. That silence hung in the room like smoke. Neither of us moved. "I'm sorry," she added finally. "For what it's worth. I should have seen it sooner. I saw how she treated you. I just thought she'd grow into it. But she didn't. She grew out of pretending." I nodded once. Took the watch, the pen, and the scotch. As I turned to leave, she stopped me with one more sentence. "You were the only good thing she had." And she set it on fire. I left without looking back. By Monday, it was business as usual. I met Marcus at the office. We signed 2 new client contracts, then grabbed lunch at a nearby cafe. He didn't bring up the wedding. Neither did I. That was the unspoken agreement between real friends. Let the fire die on its own. Later that week, I received a package at the office. It was the ring. No note. No explanation. Just the velvet box and the diamond I'd spent 4 months customizing to fit her grandmother's original band. I didn't open it. I gave it to Marcus. He sold it discreetly through a jeweler he trusted. The money went toward our firm's new office build-out. The next time I heard her name was 2 months later during a phone call with a mutual acquaintance. Apparently, she had moved back to Miami permanently. Word was, she tried to tell her version of the story to a few friends. How I left her with no warning. How I had humiliated her in front of her entire family. But then someone forwarded them Lena's statement. The video. The prenup. And just like that, the story died. She faded. Quietly. The way people do when there's nothing left to spin. As for Lena, we didn't stay in contact. She reached out once more to say she was applying for a graduate program and had moved in with a friend from school. She thanked me again for believing her, for staying calm, for not turning it into something worse. I wished her well and meant it. I never told anyone else about what happened that day on the terrace. The slap. The silence. The way everything collapsed in slow motion. I didn't need to. The truth was never meant to be performed. It was just meant to be seen. Once. Clearly. In full daylight. And I had made sure of that. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day. And trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.